our past president, Jeanne Sevrens, and her subject is, What's Luck Got to Do with It? Is Project 2 from the entertaining speaker. 5 to 7 minutes. Jeanne.
If you ever get asked to choose between smart and lucky, choose lucky. And I'm going to explain that to you in the next few minutes. It's sort of like the saying, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Now you may take offense at that, but actually it's also more scientifically known as the Matthew effect from Matthew 25:29. For whoever has been given much will be given more, and he will have abundance. And he who has been given nothing will have that taken away from him. Paraphrased. This is explained in this book by Malcolm Gladwell, who's a journalist, and he's the best-selling author of Outliers. Gladwell tells some fascinating stories. He's so interested in unexpected implications of research. And I recommend this book. It's story after story, but I want to just relay a couple of them to you. The first one is a Canadian couple who are watching their son play high school hockey. And the wife's sitting there going through the program, and she turns to her husband and says, "Honey, do you know when these children were born?" He says, "Well, they're all 13 or 14 years old, so yeah, 13 years ago." "No, that's not what I'm talking about. Look at their birth dates. They're all born in January, February, and March." So he starts wondering, what is it about those months that makes excellent hockey players? Well, he's a psychiatrist and a researcher. He goes home that night and he looks up the birth dates of professional hockey players, January, February, and March. So what's causing this? Well, it turns out if you want to play hockey when you're 5 years old in Canada, you have to be 5 years old by January 1st. So of course everybody on the team is 5 sometime in that calendar year. Naturally, the ones born in January are bigger, stronger, faster, more coordinated. They get singled out by the coaches. They're lucky. They're better players at 10 months older. They get more practice time. They're chosen to be on the travel team. They play more games. They practice more. This goes on through elementary school and high school. By the time they're 14 and 15 years old, they actually are better hockey players. They were lucky when their birthdays were. The second part of that, though, is they practiced. They practiced 10,000 hours more than their fellow students. And that's the magic number. So in addition to being lucky, you have to practice. You've got to practice 10,000 hours. Do you realize that's 5 years of full-time work? So be lucky and practice a lot. Here's another example. Bill Gates. He walks into his garage one night. He comes out the next morning with $40 billion that he doesn't know how to spend. All he can think of is to give it to Warren Buffett. Okay. But what's interesting is what happened to Bill Gates before he went into that garage. He was a smart kid, yes. He was bored in public school. He was lucky. His parents were able to send him to a private school starting in 7th grade. And that very same year, some more luck. The PTA raised enough money to buy a computer terminal. Now remember, this is 1968. It's unheard of to have a computer terminal, even in high school or college. But Bill Gates and his fellow students were able to teach themselves some programming. And they did so well at it that companies in town were willing to trade them free time on the servers if they were to test the computer programs that the companies were writing. So they did that. But Bill Gates did more than that. Now he's lucky, but he's also practicing. He finds out that the University of Seattle, which is within walking distance from his house, luckily, has a computer lab that's open 24 hours a day, and nobody's in there between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. So every night he sneaks out of his house and spends 3 hours in the computer lab. his mom can't figure out why it's so hard to wake him up in the morning. But he does this, and he works on the weekends too, sneaking into the computer lab, 20 and 30 hours of practice a week. So by the time he's out of high school, he's got thousands of hours of practice. He's got 10,000 hours before he goes into that garage of his. That's the practice part. The other lucky thing is he's born in 1955. When did personal computers take over our world? 1975. Had he been born a couple of years sooner, in 1975, he probably would have had a family. He probably would have been working at IBM, entrenched in the IBM paradigm. He would have thought personal computers were nonsense. Had he been born a couple of years after 1955, it would have been too late. He would have missed it. So he was lucky that he was born in 1955. If you don't believe me, think of who else walked into his garage one night and came out with billions of dollars. Bill Gates' birthday, Steve Jobs' birthday, 1955. So be lucky when you're born, whether the year or the month, and practice 10,000 hours, and you'll be a success. When people come up to you and say, I wish I could give confident speeches in front of a group of people, you can tell them, well, you know what to tell them. Thank you.